Hello humans, hello humans. It's the 19th, it's about 10:30 or so, heading back out. Let's talk about mental illness for a while. Everybody's got some level of it, and it's it can be transitory, or you could have it as a state of being. That it would dominate you all the time, but mental illness is pretty rampant on our planet, especially these days. We are doing things that exacerbate the tendency for humans to develop mental illness anyway. The things like, the chemtrails, the bad diet, the seed oils, the chemicals in the food, the fake food, all of this kind of shit, and the web. Okay, so we live in a social order where the crazies are at the top, and there's a little tiny bulge of people in the middle that are more or less sane, but then you drop down below them, and the pressures on those individuals raise in the lower echelons of financial and social interaction and stuff. That group, that cohort, gets back into severe mental illness because of the nature of our society and how we stratify. But right at the moment, the mother weffers are in charge, and these people are clinically insane. Okay, so they would be diagnosed as psychopaths and sociopaths. So it is true, the insane are running the planet, right? So the inmates are in charge of the asylum. And that's our real issue at the moment. And so this is what we are addressing. This is what we're going to take apart and get rid of within our social order. Is this lunacy at the top directing everything. So the lunatics at the top are Elohim worship cultists. They worship space aliens. I'm not shitting you. They worship them. And some of their space aliens would be very easily categorized as Satan or Lucifer or evil or whatever. So these people are evil. Anyway, they've done things to fuck up the diet. They've done things to fuck up the air, the water, and so on, quite deliberately, in order to try and induce as much mental illness as possible in the population at large, such that everything is not solid, it's in flux, it's has a slightly unsteady vibration, etc., so that they can stay in charge. So they may be mentally ill, but they're not necessarily without the ability to plot and plan. So they're clever. They're not particularly smart. Smart is the definition of applying your intelligence to your own life. These people don't do that. Okay? So they're not smart, but they are clever. And they're very much organizational beings. And they really do know how to work organizations and create protocols and procedures and stuff that have a tendency to boost their power base. So the Elohim worship cult, who we call Jews, right? So the Elohim worship cult has surrounded themselves by groups of people that are their shield, okay? And so their shield is that you can't find them within the larger mass of the Jews. And they set it up so you can't criticize the Jews, therefore you can't criticize the Elohim worship cult that's buried in the middle of them. In any event, so we're coming up to, or we are in global revolution now, all right? So this started several years ago as all the people started pushing back against the censorship, the fake disease, all of that crap, right? And so we started getting pushback. That pushback was the revolutionary impulse of saying to authority, fuck y'all, we're not doing that. And they kept on in their plans because they have no choice. Psychopaths are like that. They're kind of like squirrels on a treadmill in terms of their minds, that if they get in an idea that they think they need to do, they can't shed that idea. They can't give it up. Their mind won't allow them to do that, and they spin in on it, and it becomes a very brittle kind of a mindset, but they will reinforce it and reinforce it. This is part of their psychopathy. Anyway, so the psychopaths in charge of everything, their calculations are such that they think that we're going to meet the Deagle numbers, which means that over between the next 2 years, in this year, 2024 and 2025, we will have or something like that in the United States, in order to reduce us down to the population that Deagle said we would have in 2025. Bearing in mind that Deagle is an intelligence agency subcontracting site, right? That this is an op put out by them. It gets really complicated. These people have to do sigil magic, which is they've got to state things in order for it to occur. They need the vibration. They need to discuss it. They need to say it in order that it might be actualized or manifest. These people are not particularly subtle. The Elohim worship cult, the Pharisees at the core of the Jews. So basically, you can think of it this way: Judaism is the Pharisees moving their Moloch first a polytheistic religion and then a monotheistic religion claim. All right, so the Pharisees hid their evil, and they put it into the Babylonian Talmud, wrote it all down, and then have engineered things such that you don't read the Talmud, so you don't know all the shit that's in there, but you think it's a legit religion, like you think the Talmud's kind of like the Bible or something. It is not. And you'd be well advised to go and just peruse it. Just get on yandex.com and haul up a copy of the Talmud in whatever your language is and start reading it, and just jump around and read the various different forms of commentary and stuff and see what it's talking about. You know, don't take my word for it. I find it quite disgusting and foul, but you know, like I say, don't take my word for it. Anyway, the Elohim worship cult is doing all of this stuff to try and meet these Deagle numbers. They had all this stuff set up. We're on a schedule that was for 2051 was when we were supposed to go into the Great Reset. Then they had to move it forward to 2030. Then they had to move it even further forward. They had to have all three in order to get in on this actuarial analysis. So anyway, though, the expectation was and is on the part of the evil ones, the Elohim worship cult, the Pharisees at the core of the Israeli power structure. The expectation is that we're going to have a giant social collapse a la Deagle, and that we're entering into it this year. Now, there is some small amount of information in my data sets that could go towards that idea, but not directly. Okay, so some of the data sets are suggesting that we're going to have these situations where normies are going to literally just like go insane in ways we haven't seen before, okay? Acting out in ways we haven't seen before when this information comes to them that they have shortened their lives by that much. I didn't get into any of the details. You can really research that on your own if you want. But in any event, though, so the data was suggesting that a lot of the normie guys are just going to flip out and do damage. And we've seen that in New Zealand. There's been what they call a GP, a general practitioner. This has happened in other areas. It's not being reported. but I'm expecting that we'll have a lot of that kind of acting out, among other things, right? So wouldn't surprise me to see someone go terribly crazy with this kind of news and decide to, react in a political fashion, right? Like, I don't know. Anyway, doing things that would be unwise and illegal sort of thing, but a direct reaction to having been leading to you taking a bioweapon. And in my opinion, by the way, there is no redeeming quality. Okay, so there is no redeeming quality to the use of mRNA in any fashion. We know this, okay? Because mRNA has to be kept chilled at minus 80 degrees, and then it takes timed 22 minutes. So you have to time it once you get it out of the freezer, because from 22 minutes to 25 minutes, that's your window, right? So that's all you've got with mRNA after the few minutes of it being good, and then just having let's say add another 5 minutes on the other side of it for variation in air temperature and stuff. That's it. So a half an hour after you pull it out of the freezer, you've got to throw it away. And we note that they're not super refrigerating any of this. There's no super refrigerators in any of these pharmacies. Ergo, there is no mRNA in this. Now, I know this is the case from having talked with people in the pharmaceutical business and knowing people in the production side of pharmaceuticals. And they're just as, baffled as I am. These guys have never examined any. I haven't even gotten my hands on any of the stuff to examine in terms of actually getting a sample to see what's in there. But if it's not refrigerated, it can't have mRNA in it. At least that's everybody's understanding that's dealing with the biology here. And it's got to be basically frozen, I mean like super frozen, to keep this stuff stable long enough to be able to get it into you. And its half-life in your body as mRNA is relatively short. That is, it is absorbed and put to use within minutes, kind of a deal, right? So we don't have, they've got lipid nanoparticles, they got all kinds of shit, they got DNA in there, all kinds of shit. But insofar as anybody can determine, there's no mRNA in there. Plus, okay, so now the thing about the mRNA and its use is that, in my opinion, it's not justified. Okay, so the way that they're thinking about mRNA and using it as a transport vehicle for various different kinds of effective elements to put in the human body, I don't believe it to be valid. But we'll see over time. In any event, though, so the data sets are showing that the normie population is going to really come unglued late this summer. There will be a bunch of information that will come out. We'll be much deeper into the economic woes and the system collapse. We will have had some very dramatic stuff go on here. Sorry, I get distracted. There's a lumber mill that's operating that hadn't been operating, and they've got a sign out there, so I'm going to have to come back and talk to them about what they're producing and if I want to buy some of it for my house edition. And I'm still looking to get an engineering done on it. The first guy crapped out, and I can't get hold of him, and he doesn't respond. So anyway, I've got to get that done. Now, okay, so the Elohim, in order to reach the numbers projected by the Deagle guys, right? And then also that means that most of the rest of the population would be seriously impacted and sick and disabled. It's not really going that way because we don't have that they had originally thought would occur. And they were looking at, a real base at about 80%. And I don't think we achieved that anywhere. A lot of that was was basically bogus. We've thrown away so many doses. And I've seen it here in our local pharmacy. I just happened to see them throw out 4 boxes of these little vials, right? I should have grabbed one then. This was some time back. But I didn't. Anyway, so we're going to go through that. The normies are going to go crazy once they really start understanding the situation, and it will be a very ugly time this summer, right? It's going to be quite chaotic. At the same time as all that's going on, that will participate in the global revolution, which is why I'm saying that, you know, the data seems to indicate that some of these people that are going to be dealing with a sudden onset of mental illness as a result of the situation, as a result of the circumstances, and what's happening to their bodies and stuff, all of this is going to be burdensome to us, but also somewhat sudden and in terms of the outbreak. It'll just start showing up in media because media is going to be changing along with the financial stuff. So basically what's going to happen is that we're going to have continuing degradation of the dollar towards an ultimate collapse point. In the process of that, we're going to have massive stock market fluctuations and steadily increasing pressure on cryptos, gold, and silver. No, I'm not buying into the idea of an April crash, certainly not in cryptos. We always have a particular pattern for Bitcoin and the other cryptos relative to the halving, and we're there now. So we're in this little pullback now. This is ahead of the halving period. You'll note that every time we go through one of these where they cut the reward for mining, where the algorithm cuts the reward for mining in half, that by the time that that comes around, Bitcoin has essentially doubled or more in price, such that the miners are still healthy, still staying even with the whole process of the degradation of the underlying fiat currencies that we have to convert Bitcoin into. So anyway, so I expect that we'll have this, that right at the moment we're in the dip, and then we'll start rising on up. We'll have the halving. It will continue sometime beyond that in terms of rising up, and that will be against the pressure of the stock market going and doing weird shit. Up and down, crack up, boom, just as hard to say as to how it's going to manifest. Kondratev said that they would print till it all collapsed. The words crack up, boom are from von Mises, an economist, and he had a particular kind of an understanding of it, and I actually, it will probably play out as von Mises saw it, which was crazy gyrations leading to many new highs, and then they would instantly crash out, and then it'd come back to that high in the next day or so. So constantly seeking new highs and falling back. And that was his understanding of how it would go. I think that it's ultimately that's simply a small minor pattern within Kondratev's understanding, and that while that will indeed play out, our larger understanding, our larger pattern is going to be ever increasing highs in the stock market up to the point that one day there is the sort of a pullback and there's no buyers. So you can try and sell as much as you want, but there's just no buyers. And this could get real weird because of all the rehypothecation, right? So you don't really own the stocks. You just have an account somewhere where somebody said that they put the stocks in your account. And there's really no actual trading, so to speak, going on. It's all computer driven, etc., right? And it's all related to the quantity of printing of the fiat currency. And so we're coming up to that point where the system simply will not be able to maintain itself that much longer. During this period of time, as we get into this further reduction in the overall economic structure and the further degradation of the social order, getting up to that point where we have a very energetic summer, we will start seeing the degradation of the governance body. And that's one of my last temporal markers before everything going completely crazy, and then we get into open revolution, right, where people are forming common law courts, they're constituting arrest warrants, and they'll be contacting sheriffs and the military to run out and arrest politicians for, and so that's coming. We probably start seeing a lot of that, or some of it anyway, develop over early summer and then really start ballooning up as everybody gets the word and it starts spreading. Then you'll just start seeing these courts forming everywhere, and we'll start abandoning the maritime court system that we have now. So it won't be any point to suing the pharmaceutical companies in the maritime court system. So someone will take, I can't think of the name of it, but it's a writ of having caused harm, and they will go and they'll arrest all the pharmaceutical guys in wherever the pharmaceutical guys happen to be. At one point, our data is suggesting that there's going to be some guy, maybe he's into the big pharma, I don't know, but we'll know him, right? So we'll know when it happens, because this is going to be a famous fellow, or, you know, he's already famous. He's going to get a lot more famous after this happens, but he's going to land somewhere, and the data suggested that it was an airport in Texas, Louisiana, somewhere south, right? He's going to land in an airport, and there's going to be a bunch of citizens that will detain him, and he's going to fucking freak, and there's going to be too many citizens there, and he's going to be too hated for his calls for the police to save him to work. And so this guy, maybe I don't think it'll be anybody like Bill Gates, but it might be someone at that level of fame, right? And they'll just haul him off and put him in a local jail, and proceedings will start against him, and the mainstream media is going to freak, right? They're just going to lose their shit. And the police and stuff won't do anything. And there'll even at that point be calls for invasions of wherever the state is that this occurs, by another state's military in order to free this guy. Now, none of that shit's going to happen. This will all be verbiage, but it's going to be excitatory, very exciting about the, of activity about this whole process. So we're only a few months away from that beginning. That will continue for years. It's going to take us years to work our way through all of the shit that the mental illness of the mother weffer psychopaths have put on us. Anyway, guys, I'm here now, and I gotta take apart one car and put a battery in and get some other stuff going here, and also deal with mine and everybody else's mental illness. So take care. Gonna be a very energetic summer, spring and summer.